I have a name, Tayarisha, that a lot of people tend to mispronounce, which is partially why I named Selah Selah. Oh. So I think it's good to have hard names, yes. And Selah was inspired by being a teenager who had a lot of emotions like I did, and being kind of angry because I didn't know how to communicate those emotions. And I just thought about the experience of being a teenage girl, a Black teenage girl, with everybody constantly putting you into a box and everybody constantly expecting or telling you who you are. And I wanted to write a character who told you who she was, and who was unapologetically who she was, even when she messed up. She owns her mess ups, and I love that about her. So that's a lot of it. And then also just my experience of being at a boarding school when I was a teenager. I think it's a very particular way of growing up, particularly at that age. And I wanted to try to communicate that, and also just to express what having that amount of freedom at that period of time felt like. Because it wasn't until after I graduated high school and went into college that I realized a lot of teenagers didn't know what it felt like to live away from home, and didn't know what it felt like to have that independence at that age, and what that does to someone, and what that does to your idea of the power that you can have, and your understanding of how to manipulate that power. So I've always been fascinated by that. Also, I'm just fascinated by teenagers. There's like so much that you go through when you're a teenager: falling in love, falling out of love, hating your friends, loving your friends, just a lot of the stuff, a lot of the emotional things that you go through. It's the very first time that you're experiencing them. And so when a teenager comes to me and they're like, I feel like I'm gonna die because this person doesn't love me back, I understand that they might feel like they could actually die from that. They don't know if they can survive that feeling, and I find that fascinating. The factions are very much like relatable. Like, they're not extreme. Like, I feel like I did theater when I was in high school and a little bit in college. And so when I was designing the Bobbies, for instance, this is Anna, she plays Bobby. When I was designing the Bobbies, I was just like thinking about all the time we would spend in the theater and how insufferable drama kids can seem to people who aren't drama kids. But like, when you're a part of that group, you're like, oh, we're so on and so smart and so like artistic and dramatic, and we're the coolest kids. And so that was what I had in mind when I was picking out the Bobbies. And then like with the Spades, I like to think of the Spades as who I've grown into being, and like being comfortable with myself as a person, and just like being comfortable with being awkward and being weird, and like being Black, to be honest. I feel like when I was a teenager and I went to a predominantly white boarding school, it was difficult to be other. And so the Spades are a group of people who aren't the other. Even if they are demographically the other, they are their main characters. And so that's what I thought about with the Spades, and with like the skins and the C and the prefix. It feels like it's like a very natural, I don't know, just a very natural grouping of social order in a way. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
I feel like it was more so the people that fell together, and then the name of the group came.
Totally.
It wasn't like, okay, they're gonna be the Skins. It was just, these people just happen to gravitate towards each other. So it's just a matter of like where you're gravitating towards in the film. It's a lot of gravity.
It's a lot of gravity. Different points of gravity. Yeah.
And I think that also relates to real life too. Like, there are just the kids that are like very smart in all the AP classes, and they hang out together, or at least in my high school. And then there are the drama kids that hang out together, and there are like groupings that happen really naturally, and I think the factions really represent that in a like authentic way.
We started with casting Sela because the idea was that Sela is the center, and everyone sort of, well, gravitates towards Sela, you know? So like, once you have Sela, then you understand what the rest of the place will look like. And so once we had Lovey, honestly, it was really fast. It was like a domino effect. It's like, because Lovey is Sela, this person's right, this person's right, this person's right, this person's right. It was amazing the way that it happened. We worked with Jessica Daniels, who's a phenomenal casting director. And, but it was driven by Lovey being Sela. And just the presence and the youthfulness that she brings to the character, because you're young. How aren't you?
I'm 20.
Yeah, but like, you turned 20 a month ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're So when you cast a teenager in that role, because you were 19 in the summer, then obviously it means that you sort of gravitate towards anybody who can pick up on that youthful energy and have fun with it, which helped out a lot, and even affected the way that we cast, Selah's mother with Gina and the headmaster with Jesse. But it started with Selah.
I went to a boarding school, a New England boarding school, and so for some obvious reasons, I really took to the world that the script was creating and the language of the script, the cultural currency that is exchanged and gripped amongst the student body. I had a lot of interactions with our headmaster. I had some disciplinary issues of my own at that age. And so I know that headmaster's office pretty well. I know what it is to have the feel, kids at that age, young people that age often carry with them a hyper certainty about everything, a utopianism. I know, why don't people live like this? Why don't we do this? Exactly because you read 2 books or something and you got excited. But you have this certainty, but you also have this volcanic lava of uncertainty coursing through you at the same time. And so that manifests itself in many different ways. And so having that power exchange in the office with somebody who actually wields a certain authority over you, even though they don't really have authority anywhere else in your life, but it is palpable, and so I could relate to the world and being on the other side of that desk immediately. So that was helpful to me. I also was a teacher. I taught high school, so I've been on the other side of that desk with high school students, trying to be relatable and cool, but also wield authority consistently, have disciplinary power and influence, and keep their attention, which is not that different than acting. You're trying to hold an audience's attention that doesn't really have to be there, and can. So that wasn't the most difficult for me to at least imagine.
What was interesting specifically about Selah's mom and their relationship is you see a direct line to her rebellion. You see, she's so exacting. She's so certain and brutal about not wanting her daughter to go awry, to take the wrong steps, to go down a bad road, because she has her father's DNA. And it's just absolutely the worst thing that you could possibly do to a person at this point in their lives, when they're really just trying to figure out who they are, irrespective of your parents and how you were nurtured and where you came up, and to have that kind of freedom in a boarding school where she is mostly away from me. To be able to play and play all those reindeer games that they're out there in the world doing, it's terrifying, and it's real, and also incredibly necessary for her own development and evolution.
I feel really, honestly, the only word that I have for it is blessed that I worked with the group of people that I did, the crew and the cast, everyone, and I talk about this often because I mean it, and I feel it so thoroughly. We treated one another with such kindness and with such gratitude, and people would say please, and they would say thank you, and they would be patient, and most importantly, we assumed that everyone meant well, and we assumed that everyone was coming from the right place, and that place being in service of the story. And because of that, everything just worked. Everything flowed very smoothly. We were on time. We were just having fun, and we were able to because making a movie's hard, and all of our jobs are hard.
She made it look really easy. She made it look so easy. It felt like it was her 20th film. It was the most relaxed. No, really, it was the most. I told you this. It was the most relaxed set. No one was ever. I never felt like, oh my gosh, we have to get this, or this was a stress. I mean, you guys worked more days than me, but it was really relaxed, and it was incredible. Yeah, the whole.